Okay, so back to looking at these videos. So this is video 2, and we're going to start with JD. You have two different versions in here. I'm going to use the camera you have just so we can see it. So let's see how this even plays in here. It's not bad, actually. So the first thing I'd tell you is, like, just really for presentation purposes, like, hide all of these controls. The easiest way to do that in Maya is just to go to show and just uncheck NURBS curves right there. And that's just going to hide all of that stuff, and we can focus on the animation, because that stuff can get kind of distracting. Your camera motion is interesting. I like what you're doing with it. It gets a little wonky and, like, starts to trim the character's head off there a little bit at times. So you kind of have to be careful with that. Not get too crazy with it to where it distracts you from the actual animation. So by being able to see the controls, it does tell me a little bit about how you did it. And I think it's really interesting that you're moving this placement control from platform to platform. I don't know if you're doing constraints for that or if you're just transitioning it and animating it along. I think that that's what you're doing, and in that case, I guess it's actually kind of working, because you're not moving it all the time. You're just moving it at the time of the jump. But, like, right here, you see how your character's rear foot slides backwards. I think that's where you have to be careful with that. Is, like, you need to keep that in place so we can keep our character's foot in place to make it feel like he's pushing off the ground there, right? But right now it feels like it slides backwards before he lands here. I think that you're needing some more up in here. Like, this is the jump pose, and, like, he doesn't really go up very much. He just kind of goes across. I don't know that I would use this control to move him up. I would probably use the hip control and the 2 feet controls. But I think that's what I would do to push him. Like, you get this squat down here, and then it's like he just kind of drifts from here to here, and it really needs to be a hop, right? So he almost needs to squat down here and then push himself up into the air really quickly. So he's up in the air for a little bit, and then he lands here. And you got the landing pose. Is you don't really have the push off and the jump up in the air through here. He just kind of slides across. And then on this one, he just kind of slides across too. So you need a little bit of a hop there. And I like that you... I like that this last one doesn't feel like a big jump. It's almost more like he's doing like a step. But he still needs a little bit of a pop right there, just to, like, sort of pop himself up in the air. Just a touch, like a hop more than a jump. Right? So I think you got some cool stuff going on here. Again, play with the camera. I think you also, like, you get some good poses. Like, actually, these are really pretty strong poses for the most part. And I like this, like that he does this, right? But I think that's where it starts to fall apart a little bit, because you don't have that overlapping action in it, right? You have your Maya file in here, and so what I might do is really quickly just throw this into the Maya file and see if I can open it. This is 2017. Sorry, of course. Let me try opening it up in Maya 2018. Okay, just give me a second here. Okay. Here we go. So, yeah, so I think right here we could do it. You could push him you could push him down right here, right, where he goes down, and then that way you could push him up through this section in the middle. I think that foot's going a little too far forward, but then right through here, just push him up in the air a little bit. Right. So just by doing that, you get a little bit more of a jump, and then you can get a contact right through here. That foot's out there almost ready to touch the ground, and then he sinks into it, right? And so you can see sort of the difference in that now, the way he like kind of hops across now. I personally think he's going too far forward too early though. And then maybe up here. That makes more sense. So just by doing that, now I feel like he kind of does a little hop there. Now, one of the things I was saying earlier, though, is when he gets here, I like that he does this, but then he leans back, and he does all this, like, bobbly, like, chest stuff here, right, where his chest is swinging around. I think you need to make it feel like the arms are reacting to it, right? So when he goes from here to here, right, think about what the arms would do in between there, right? So 15 to 20, it's kind of like the arm just kind of blends straight up. So if we were to do another in-between pose here, we'll go ahead and just we'll leave the rest of the pose the way it is, but just drag the arms, very similar to how we did with like the pendulum, right? Just drag the arms behind here. Right. Then what we're going to get is this feeling that the arms sort of drag. And then once they get up to here, you can even have them overshoot like this. Right. And so hopefully what that'll look like now is that those arms are a little bit looser. And so maybe even through here I still need some more of that drag. So like a little bit like that. So I'm just trying to build some of this into it so we get that looseness in the way the character's moving. Right. So now I think he goes to this pose a little fast now, and that's my fault for messing with it a little bit. But I think we can, we can still sort of play around with it and get something that looks pretty good, right? So now you'll see his arms just feel a little looser in that section, right? And some of that's just by building some drag poses into the arm. And then the last little thing I was saying earlier here, like when he pushes off, you see how that foot here doesn't seem like it stays in the same position, right? Like it's not right now. It is like over here. We're at the beginning of this animation. It's up here. And so that makes it feel like that foot slipped when he tried to jump. Right? I will say I really like your reference. I think you have some good reference video. I'll not drag that over here in case you're shy about reference, but I think you definitely have some good stuff in there, and having that in the viewport with you will really help you pull from that and get the information in there. So I've posted the video about how to do that, so check that out. I think it'll be helpful. So all right, let's move on to the next one. Jacob, what is this? Let's see. Oh, I don't think we looked at this one in class here. Okay, so you have two different versions here. So let's just go ahead and start with this one. So you have a creature walk. Let's check them out. So I definitely think you got the poses here. I think you're getting some nice breakdowns and some overlapping action. I think the thing I'm noticing right now is in our character's hips up and down, right? Like this is your down pose, right? And we can kind of tell that, right? That your character's hips sort of hit their lowest point at the same time that the foot hits the ground. And I think that you need to offset that a little bit, right? Because that would mean like your character is both falling forward and their foot is falling toward the ground at the same time. And really what's happening is the character's foot's probably getting out there in front first and catching them, and then a few frames later the hips will hit their lowest point. So I think offsetting that and getting some overlapping action in the when everything hits is really what's needed right now. This feels like a really good strong blocking plus of this with some overlapping action built into the poses, but I think it needs more overlapping action built into the animation. The hard part about that in a cycle is that you have to offset stuff and you have a limited range, right? So using that cycle tool inside of Maya, I know you're familiar with it. I'm actually going to be showing everybody in class today. So using that tool inside of Maya means that you can shift a whole curve, and as long as they're the same number of frames for that cycle, right? As long as the arm motion is still 30 frames long or however many frames long, right? Then you can have that and just have it cycling at a different interval, right? You can always go back and rekey it later if you need to get your cycle to a certain point. But we're going to go over this a little bit in class today, so hopefully that'll be helpful. So overall, this is looking good. I think your poses are super strong. I think you really just need to get a lot of overlapping action in this. And I think that's going to require you doing a little bit more cycling. I also wish you'd have participated in the critique. I think that would have been helpful to get some more feedback on this. But there's some really great posing in here. I mean, this is a creature that's probably really easy to pose well, too, because it's very appealing and it's thin, and you can get these really nice, intricate silhouettes, too. So I think that this is going to show off really well in the final presentation, or in portfolio. So, okay, go ahead and close that down. Yeah, the biggest note on that is overlapping action. So, Landon, kicking down door. Yeah, this guy. Okay, first things first. Why are we way back here? Like, even pushing us in to here would make us, let's just actually just play with that, right? What if I did this, and this were your framing? Right? That's not the exact right proportion, but we can get it kind of close, right? And if we watched it here, so we definitely got some more information there. Right? Let's try zooming it in a little bit more. If we were more like, so if we're at this framing, look how much closer we are and how much more information we get, right? So I think that's a big issue with staging, is like I have no interest in any of this stuff out here. What I'm really wanting to see is what's going on right here. So pull us into that. I think you have some pretty nice overlapping action, actually. I like that arm that kind of overlaps and kind of drags back through here. I think you got some pretty strong poses. I think you need to be careful on this landing. I like that you start on this pose, but you start on this pose, and it's like he's like hovering there, and then he starts to slowly ease forward, and then he hits his top speed here, and then he slows down again, and sort of slows to a stop, right? So I think you got to go in there and break some tangents. Like the amount of time it takes him to come in and land I think you could almost cut that by half. Just by like your spacing on your character overall is like, let me get it in here, is like, right. And so you have to, like, instead of it being that, you need to have it be like maybe something like that, right? That like he's kind of coming in pretty quick. We get his feet up here, right? We get him maybe here, you know, it's like stretching out. Maybe make that pose as he's coming in a little bit more interesting, because he's kind of just like drifting down in an angel position here. He's like, oh, like descending, and then he kind of lands. I mean, I think he needs a little bit of something more interesting, maybe right through here, maybe a slightly bent knee or something. And then like, but look how much distance, look how his spacing changes on his feet. Like it gets smaller as he gets closer to the ground, right? And that means you're letting that tangent ease in when you should break it, right? I think you're going to get a lot more impact on that landing that way. His arc is also doing something kind of interesting. It looks like he's starting over here, right? And he's kind of arcing in like this or something. I don't know. He's doing something kind of like this or something. And I think you just need to clear that up, make sure he's kind of like, if this were a jump, if he were like really doing a jump from somewhere else or jumping down from somewhere else, we're just seeing this part of the arc, right? So making sure that's clear. Posing, a lot of this is really strong. I like your feet stuff you got going on here. I like this. I like this little hop he does, and then this kick. The only problem with it is his spine, for the most part throughout this whole hop and kick, his spine stays kind of in the same shape, right? And I think this is a chance to really play with your line of action and how you can use it to sell that kick, right? So if we step him forward one frame, like right now he's pushing his hips forward, right? So maybe what he's doing is he's like throwing his weight backwards here, right? So maybe you would get something a little bit more like this, right? And then this foot down like this. And then his lower body, like he's like throwing that forward, right? Is it not disappearing? Here we go. And so that means in the next frame, I would want to see his lower body a little bit more forward, right? And his upper body like this, right? And then like this leg maybe sort of dragging behind, right? And this one kind of here. And then maybe his arm's still forward, right? And then he gets into this stuff here where he's really, really scrunched up, right? With that leg up to his knee, foot back, maybe something like that. I don't know, right? This is his foot. And so but basically you're getting a curved line of action in his spine, right? And that way, when he kicks forward right here, you can reverse that, or at least like stretch that, right? You can go from that scrunched up curve to this like kicked out curve, right? And then like maybe even like lean him back and like get all that energy going through this leg out this way, right? And so it's really all about that line of action and trying to get that to feel like it's the reason that energy is going forward, not his leg. Because if it's just his leg, then it's whatever muscle he has in his leg is going to pop that door open. If it's his entire body, then it's all of his mass and the muscle in his leg that's going to pop that door open, right? But overall, the biggest issue with it, and I love this, like this drag in the arm here and the overshoot and the settle. Like, all that's really good. I kind of agree with him that it'd be nice to see, like, if he's got like a hand grenade or something in his hand here. I think that would be kind of neat. And I do think that there's a little bit of stiffness in. Actually, like, there's a little bit of stiffness in each arm at certain times. So maybe still play with those just a little bit more to loosen those up. But there's a lot of spots where you've already loosened them up. So good job on that. So. Okay, let's see if we can get at least one more, maybe two more done before I have to go to my next class, which is actually your class. I'll see you in a second here. Here's Maya. Oh, okay, Megan. So we talked about this one quite a bit in class. I think you got sorry, had to get a drink. I think you got a lot of good stuff going on here. I think there's still some stuff that still feels a little disconnected. I'm not sure what this is coming out on his arm there. That's interesting. But I do think that some of it may be fixed just by showing us a slightly different angle. Because right now his or I guess his, I don't know, the character's chest mass is also blocking the character's like rear hip mass, right? And so if a dog is sort of made up of this rib cage, hips, and this connection together, right? And then a head mass and this connection together, and then whatever snout, right? Then we're kind of missing that by having those two masses overlap each other, right? So I think just turning it a little bit will give us a little bit of a prettier line of action, because right now our line of action we can't really get to see it. So I think that's going to help a little bit. All right. And we start to be able to see it a little bit more as we get closer to the end here, and I think that's why that part's feeling pretty good. I think most of the issues I'm seeing with this are still issues of loosening up how the feet are working and how the feet are kicking through. So little things like just a little bit of like whatever's happening on the toe right there. The fact that like this rear foot, once it gets picked up, it kind of stays like flat on the bottom after that. Why does it jump to a different frame? Like stuff like that can be kind of hard to tweak out, and so the feet need just a little bit more polish. But it's looking much better. I think the other thing is like we need to make sure that those two masses stay feeling like they're connected together, right? So for example, when the dog's like, here's this mass, right? And like that front mass comes down, but look at the back mass. It's not really responding when it hits the lowest point there. Then maybe the frame after that mass should either go higher or lower. Right? Looks like right now I have it going a little higher, right? I mean, we could always just have it drop a little bit too, because it feels like it's being pulled by this front mass. So I mean, it needs something to show that those are connected together, right? And the best way to do that is to just always think of them as being connected together, right? And if I move this way, right, then it's going to pull on this tension, and then this is going to follow it, right? But it's going to happen in that sequence. So that means if this moves on frame 5, then it may be frame 6 or even 7 before this moves, right? And so I think that that's going to help to think about that one can't really move without the other being affected a little bit. And so that also means like right here, when those hips are moving, the chest feels like it's not doing as much. And it could just be that you need it to sort of wobble a little bit from side to side. I think you're also getting a really deep curve in the spine there. And so if that were our line of action, if I were like looking at this dog from above, right, like this is the way it was connected, it looks like your line of action isn't doing this and this. It looks like it's doing this instead, right? And so I think you need to kind of, carry that all the way through. And the way you do that is, if this one rotates this way, then this one rotates this way, and that's going to get you this line of action, right? Hopefully this is making sense, but overall this is looking pretty good. The last little thing I'd say is I think you could play a little bit with the eyes on this. For some reason this bothers me right here. It's almost like the eyes go a little dead through here, and it's because you're not getting it's more like the head is following the ball and not the eyes, right? So you could have the eyes doing like some pretty big eye darts, like it's like looking at different points on the ball throughout this. I think that would help. The other thing is like right here, see how the ball like kind of like right here it's kind of in his gaze, right? But then 2 frames later it's like it's getting away from him. Like if that happens, then he needs to feel like he tries to catch up here. His eyes will dart down a little sharper to try to catch up with it. And so I think, just playing around with those eyes, that's almost like a polish pass thing. Right now it feels like you've kind of timed the head right, but the eyes still need to be doing a little bit more to keep up with it. I feel like the beginning you have some fun ear stuff, but I do think you could probably do a little bit more with the ears at the end as well. So overall, it's got a good foundation. The hard part about any creature is that the anatomy is so much more visible than humans who wear clothes and have lots of fat on us and stuff like that. Like this is, we're going to see mistakes in the anatomy a little easier on a creature. So you kind of have to fight those off a little bit more. But overall, pretty good job. So. And so, Milana, I think we're going to probably do yours and then call it for this video. Oh yeah, okay. Let me watch this one again so I can remember. Yeah, so you talked about possibly having a slightly different camera or something on this. I think it wouldn't hurt just to get us some more interesting dynamics, but you got some cool stuff going on here. I think you need a little bit more of a squash right here, just a little bit more, and then you need it to pop up a little bit more on this jump. Right now, it just kind of feels like he goes into that pose, but if you look at the height of the hips, it's not really changing that much, right? And so I think, push the hips up to like here to get this like arc over, right? I do think that there's some overlapping stuff and some cleaning up of arcs that you could do. I see a couple of spots where your elbows and your knees are getting IK pop. So we talk about what IK pop is like, your IK is controlling that joint chain, like in your knee. But then when that goes completely straight, right, that means you've pulled that IK further than those bones actually are when they're completely straight, right? And so it locks out straight, and we get this knee pop. And it usually happens over 1 frame, where the knee goes from bent to completely locked, and then it'll pop when it goes back to bent again, right? And that's how we can tell IK pop. We also seem like you're getting a little bit of it in the elbow, right? Maybe it's right. I thought I saw some in the elbow. Oh, it may not be IK pop. You may just having like your elbow aim or something like that. Seems like you're getting some hitching on it right through there. But I like what you get like in this drag in the ears here. I think adding a little bit of that to the head too would be nice. And so this is looking pretty okay. I think your timing is a little not exactly correct. Like I like that it's these first two are kind of slow and cautious. Not always sure why the character is against the wall, but they're kind of cautious and getting these like double looks back. And then this jump feels a little too sharp, so it needs an anticipation, right? We talk about anticipation in the principles or in animation fundamentals as being the thing that lets you know an action is about to happen. And so it happens for a purpose here in that you get this squash for the jump, right? And so the rabbit needs to build up that energy to be able to jump. But it also lets us know, oh, he's getting ready to jump. And as soon as we realize that, he'll jump, right? What's happening now is he's jumping before we're reading the anticipation. Like it's going right past the anticipation into the jump. So get down into this anticipation, hold it for a frame or two, and then jump, right? And I think that'll adjust your timing a little bit. I think your spacing could use just a little bit of work in some spots, like the way he transitions from here to here is very even. Like the amount of like motion. So what you could do is maybe kind of ease out of this a little bit, go fast to the middle, and ease back into this a little bit at the end, right? But that's kind of subtle stuff. It's not too bad. I think that it's actually pretty good where you're at right now. But you could still put a little bit more work into that, and I think just a touch more work into the eye darts as well. Overall, though, this is looking pretty good. Now, I think you're at a point right now where what you need to do is, and the last thing I was going to say is these hand poses are just a little too default looking. Like they kind of look like the bind pose on the character's hands. So one of the things I think I would do at this point is you find all the points that are, let's try like the tip of this finger, tip of the toe, all of these points that are kind of out here on the ends, right? And if you can put a locator or something like that on it, and then track the way that motion is happening, right? So this arm, maybe that arm does something like, this, right? But when you do these art tracks, what you'll find is something like, instead of that, maybe you'll get like this, like that, right? And like that's easy for us to see that all we have to do is get that little spot right there out and like clean that up and maybe get this cleaned up a little bit more there, right? And we can turn this into a better arc. And so that's one of the things I think one of the last few things that this is needing is just cleaning up those arcs. What you can do is you can sort of parent in a locator, or if there's already a control on the nose or the finger, you just do the editable motion trail for that, and then you adjust the other curves on the character until you find those little hitches and how to fix them. If you can't find them in the graph editor, sometimes you just have to fix it by, manually correcting that keyframe with a pose, right? Yeah, cool though. This one's turning out pretty good. So, nope. Let's see, 11:07. I got a class at 11:15. It's your class, so I will go ahead and end it there. I have, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more to go for this class, and then I have the other class as well. So I'll try to get to those very soon. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.